Backstage, some judges said he looked convincing. Others who didn't look like an abuser. As if there was a look to it, that as if monsters needed horns to be identified. The hidden truth behind the judgment is this: he won because the system doesn't know how to judge words, because silence does, not enter into the minutes, because the absence of marks becomes permission. But the justice that failed, Aina continues to fail every day, because the mentality is the same, because the look is still addicted. Because as long as there is no blood, many continue to believe that there is no crime. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject. Because when we talk about impunity, we are not just talking about a judge's decision. We are talking about an entire social construct that protects those who know how to manipulate, that teaches victims to doubt themselves, that validates discreet aggressors, those who hurt with phrases, gestures, calculated absences. Aina's journey did not end with the body on the floor. It was ended when her pain was treated as weakness, when your words were reduced to exaggeration, when the court decided that the lack of evidence was more important than the excess of suffering. And even though he was acquitted, he knew he came out of there clean, but not innocent. And the way he smiled as he left the forum said it all. If this revolted you, if any part of this story seems familiar, write a phrase that stuck with you in the comments. It could be, "Silence also testifies," or just, "She screamed," without sound. Each comment is a living reminder against this mentality that still insists on silencing what should be heard the most. Stay with me until the end. Because what he did after being released will show how evil, when it feels unpunished, is not content to remain in the past. She died, but my sentence began there. That was the only sentence he said, looking directly at the camera. Cold, slow, no tears, no rush. As if confessing were a ritual, not a relief. As if somehow there was still a version of events that absolved him. Inside him, there were no handcuffs, no bars, but there was one cell he couldn't leave, and it wasn't made of iron. It was made of memories, because her face still appeared, sometimes in the reflection of the mirror. Sometimes in the ragged breath of dawn. Her voice, the one he had tried to silence, began to speak louder after she had completely fallen silent. A voice that whispered what he never wanted to hear. "You killed me." Without laying a finger. He said he loved her. And maybe, in the twisted way he had learned to love, that was true. But love that suffocates, manipulates, and controls, that is not love. It is possession. And now, without her, he had nothing left, not even peace. His routine became a theater of normality. He still went to work. He still smiled in brief interactions. But something had changed in his eyes. It was as if they were always somewhere else. As if, inside, he had stopped in time, trapped in that frozen instant, between the sound of the impact and the confirmation of death. The hidden truth is that he was still there, physically free, but emotionally buried. And the mental cell he lived in was crueler than any official sentence, because there was no end to the punishment. There was no lawyer, there was no possible defense against what he himself had built. At night, dreams came with details. She's standing on the balcony. She's coming down the stairs. She looked back, not in fear, but in disappointment, and that hurt more than any scream, because her silence, now eternal, said everything he refused to hear. He tried to follow. He got involved with other people, but they all seemed to disappear when he mentioned Anna. And he mentioned Anna all the time. As if, by repeating the name, he was trying to rid himself of guilt. But guilt cannot be escaped with words. She infiltrates. She transforms. She turns into a shadow, his shadow. And no matter how much he tries to smile, the truth comes back. In the smells. In objects. In the streets. In the cafe she used to drink at on rainy days, which she hated. He realized there was no way out, not from the city. Not from routine, not of himself, because the real executioner never leaves. It is internal. He is the reflection. It's the breath taken away. When you find yourself alone. It is regret that can no longer be useful. And even when no one accuses him, he feels the gaze. Even when they say it was a fatality, he knows what he said. You know what you did. You know what you destroyed. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject. Because there is a type of prison that doesn't make the headlines. It is one in which the punishment is waking up every day with the memory of what was lost. It is carrying an incomplete story. Aina didn't fall from the building that day. She's been falling for months. In solitude inside the house. In the indifference of those who said they loved. No emotional abandonment. In the constant feeling that it would never be enough. And the cruelest? She spent so much time hearing that she was dramatic, intense, difficult to deal with, that she started to believe it. And when you believe that, everything gets heavier. The world loses its color. The future seems like a cruel joke. You stop making plans. Just try to survive. Until even that doesn't make sense anymore. The truth is that many falls start well before the edge. They start with the way we are treated. In the way we learn to keep quiet. In the way they ignore our pain because it doesn't bleed. They begin when we give up defending ourselves. Because we no longer believe we deserve to be saved. If this passage left you with any memories stuck in your throat, write a word or phrase that represents you in the comments. It could be, she fell before she fell. Or just, I felt the impact. It is in these words that other silent voices find the courage to exist. Aina's fall didn't end when her body touched the concrete. The truth is that the most devastating impact came later, when everyone fell silent, when versions began to take shape, and he continued to be seen as the calm guy, the boyfriend who tried to help. And even after everything, there were people saying that she was unstable, that if she had sought help, maybe she would be alive. But nobody asks. Bausch didn't ask for help, or rather, why didn't anyone notice the silent requests she left everywhere? Guilt, when disguised as regret, hides very well, and he did it masterfully. That's why stories like Aina's cannot be forgotten. They need to be told, not for sensationalism, but because there are many people living exactly the same thing right now. At this moment, people surrounded by words that hurt, looks that wound, silences that kill. Inside, if you feel this kind of truth needs to continue to be exposed, sign up here. In truth, every time someone joins this community, we gain strength to keep this type of content alive. And it's not just about numbers. It's about giving a name to what many still pretend doesn't exist. It's about ensuring that more voices like Anna's don't get lost in the noise of excuses. And yes, what comes after that is even more disturbing, because he didn't stop. He never stopped. The trial was quick, formal, almost protocolary, the kind that starts and ends before anyone can figure out where exactly the truth was buried, because there were no marks, there were no bruises, no blood, no broken objects. There was only an absence, definitive, and a presence that pretended not to know the reason. He was called to testify. He sat down calmly, straight gaze, dark clothing, firm voice. He said he loved her. He said he never touched her. He said that Aina had her own demons. And it was at this point that everything began to unravel. Because when a man says a woman had demons, the world believes him. But when a woman screams that she is being destroyed inside, the world asks for proof. The prosecution presented the audios, the messages exchanged between Aina and a close friend, the sentences marked in the notebooks, emotional changes observed by colleagues. The progressive removal. The small attempts to call for help. All ignored. But no report confirmed physical aggression. There was no police report. No formal history of reporting. And for many, that was enough. The defense took advantage. He turned Aina's words into an inconsequential outburst. It put his emotional stability into question. She claimed that if she was suffering, She should have sought help, and the court listened. He listened and waved. As if pain without proof wasn't pain. As if death only matters when there is visible blood. In the end, he got off without formal charges. Nothing legally linked him to what happened. Words, jurors said, could not be held responsible for what she decided to do. But did anyone there listen to the tape all the way through? Did anyone look Anna's mother in the eyes? Has anyone tried to understand how a girl with plans, with projects, with love for the little details, got to the point of giving up on everything? There was one witness who carried a weight on her shoulders, the friend who received the last messages. Anna had written, "I wish someone would see, but I think I've become too invisible already." That sentence should have been the pivot. The cut, the center of research, but it turned into just another line read in a low voice. Anna tried to react, in silence. He wrote letters that he didn't deliver. I recorded audios that I deleted immediately afterwards. I read books about self-esteem, but I cried before finishing the first chapter. She still wanted to go back to being who she was, but he had already planted a new version in her mind, weak, fragile, dependent. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because emotional violence doesn't just happen between couples. It exists in toxic friendships, in the workplace, in homes, between parents and children. The way many people are taught to accept everything, as long as it is with a smile on their face. Society still values silence too much, and it romanticizes resistance too much. But the truth is that it wasn't the fall that killed Anna. It was the accumulation, the invisible weight of each cursed phrase, of each disguised humiliation, of each gesture that pushed her into herself until there was no way out. He was not a visible monster. He was just an ordinary man, with sharp words and an absolute lack of empathy. He was someone who knew how to hurt, and at the same time, appear harmless. And that makes it all the more dangerous, because how many others are doing exactly the same thing right now? How many Annas are keeping quiet today while the world applauds those who hurt the most? If this passage awakens something in you, anger, memories, a lump in your throat, write a sentence in the comments that summarizes this impact. It could be, "Words also kill," or maybe just, "I heard that." Every memory shared here is a scream that refuses to die in silence. The last time anyone saw Anna alive was on a cloudy Tuesday. She wore a navy blue coat, the same as always. She carried a light, almost empty backpack and walked slowly, as if she had time. But no destination. The security cameras captured everything coldly: the hesitant step, the pause in the middle of the sidewalk, the eyes that looked upwards. At nothing. She went up alone. No one accompanied her. But in the inside pocket of the backpack, there was something, a small, switched-on tape recorder. In the audio, there was no screaming, no anger, no despair. Just a deep breath and a shaky voice saying, "I can't stand feeling dead anymore," next to him. That sentence, said almost in a whisper, cut more than any knife, because it wasn't just a statement. It was a sentence. She was alive, but she no longer felt part of her own life. She was breathing, but without air. I slept, but without rest. I loved, but only as far as the other person allowed. This audio only came to light days later, when the police collected the belongings. The family didn't know. The friends didn't know. He said he didn't know either, but I knew every time. I diminished it. Of every night she cried hidden in the bathroom, while he watched series in the living room. I knew the way she avoided confrontation. Even when she was right. I knew she smiled with her mouth, but never with her eyes. I knew she wasn't herself anymore. And yet, it continued. The building had 20 floors, but she stopped at the 12th. The floor they lived on when they moved in together. There, on that same floor, she had dreamed of building a life. There, he began to dismantle it, piece by piece, and that's where she chose to end it. The body fell at 10:13. In the morning, almost no one on the street, few heard the impact, but those who heard it never forgot it. The dry sound of a body touching concrete, the silence that came afterwards, and a backpack dropped a few meters before, as if she wanted to leave a part behind. The news spread quickly. A young man takes his own life in an upscale neighborhood, but no one asked what was behind it. No one wanted to know what brought her there. Just one more statistic. Just another woman who couldn't handle the pressure. He cried at the wake. She hugged her parents. He spoke to the press. She said she was going through a difficult time. But he didn't tell me that part of that moment came from him. The way he treated her. Of what he said. Of what he denied. At the police station, when asked if he knew why she would do something like that, he replied, "She was weak. She always was. She couldn't handle anything." This phrase was recorded in the statement. Words spoken coldly, without hesitation. Without a shadow of guilt. He wasn't in shock. He was in control. As it always was. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because the final impact of a life is not just at the moment of the fall. It is in the construction of the fall. It is in the silence that precedes it. In the unspoken conversations. In ignored messages. The times when the person wanted to ask for help, but gave up because they knew no one would understand. Silent pain is more common than you might think. She doesn't scream. She corrodes. It consumes the corners, the desires, until everything becomes routine, including suffering. Those who knew her noticed that. In recent months, she took longer to respond. She always seemed distracted, always with her eyes somewhere no one else was. She posted less. I went out less, but she smiled more, as if the smile was some kind of password to keep everyone away from how she really felt. A coworker reported that, days before the fall, Aina wrote in a forgotten note, "I became the woman he wanted. I just don't know where the woman I was is." This is more than sad. It's brutal. It's the kind of violence that doesn't make headlines, but it tears pieces of the person until nothing is left but the essential, the will to exist. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because when we look at Aina, we are not just looking at a victim. We are looking at a social construct that normalizes silence as a virtue, a mindset that sees love as a test of endurance, a culture where enduring is more praised than protecting yourself. And this distortion starts early. In the small compliments to the girl who doesn't cry. In pride for the young woman who doesn't give any trouble. In the invisible reinforcement that the more you swallow, the more value you have. Aina's emotional journey was marked by decisions that didn't seem like decisions. They were concessions, small daily surrenders that added up. Became a sentence. Revelations like this hurt, but they need to be said, because there are many Annas around us, walking the same path with the same contained smile and the same desire to disappear without making a sound. And when we understand this, something inside us changes. If this excerpt brought back any memories, if you connected with any part of Aina, write a word in the comments that stayed with you. It could be cactus, or just, "I also erased myself." Each comment is like a recognized scar. It doesn't disappear, but it stops being invisible. Stay with me until the end, because the next part of this story will show what no one had the courage to see. When there was still time, he never needed to raise his hand. He never needed strength. His gun was cleaner, more accepted. Easier to hide, and therefore infinitely more dangerous. It was the word. You are a burden. He doesn't even know how to breathe without making mistakes. If it disappeared, no one would notice. Phrases like these, thrown out in the middle of an ordinary day, like someone commenting on the weather, silently entered her flesh. They didn't leave bruises, but they hurt where no one could see. The damage was internal, progressive, calculated. He always had a subtle way of poisoning. He didn't swear directly. He didn't shout in public. He did it differently. He raised a doubt, then walked away. He would say something cruel, and then hug her. It was a cynical dance between hurt and relief, and she danced because she still believed there was love there. But what there was control. Emotional dominance disguised as a relationship. He didn't want a partner. He wanted an extension of himself. An obedient shadow. Little by little, Aina stopped trusting her own perception. He began to doubt his own feelings. If he said she was exaggerating, she believed him. If he said she was forcing things, she apologized. Even when she was right. Even when she was right. Especially when she was right. This is the terrain where psychological violence is born. In the constant manipulation of the truth. In the distortion of emotions. In the silent game where one wins. Whenever the other feels guilty just for existing. And he was a master at it. He knew what to say. He knew how to turn it around. In front of others, he was charismatic. Kind. Good. Natured. Behind the scenes. It was a voice that slowly corroded everything. That made Aina feel alive. Your talent, your independence, your opinions. Everything was devalued, reduced. You only have this because I help you. If I disappear, you won't last a week. Who would choose you if it wasn't me? He didn't scream, but he killed in installments. And this confused those around, because the wound was internal, and Aina, out of pride or fear, showed nothing. This is the hidden truth of many toxic relationships. Abuse is not an event. It is a process. It is a journey of emotional exhaustion, which begins with small concessions and ends with the total loss of self. And when someone tries to leave, it's too late, because you no longer believe you have enough value to leave, because you have been convinced day after day that you are worthless, that he will not be loved, that he will not be heard. It was as if day after day, he was hollowing Aina out so that she would fit into an invisible mold. More fragile. More dependent. Quieter. And when it no longer had any shine or strength, he became irritated. You have become a burden. These words came out of his mouth 3 days before his death, and they were recorded. She had started recording everything. Maybe to understand, maybe to prove it, or maybe because she already knew that no one would believe her afterwards. The tape was leaked months after his confession. It was just the voice of the two. No scream, just wear and tear. She trying to explain how she felt. He deflected, countered, pointed out her every flaw as if it were a technical report of personal failures. You are too emotional. You make up drama. You get tired. The sentences hit like hammers. And in the end, silence. She takes a deep breath. He leaving the room. A detail that few people noticed in the audio. The sound of the window opening. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject. Because what happened to Aina was not an isolated case. It is a reflection of a distorted mentality, which normalizes small, daily acts of violence. The kind of pain that doesn't show up on X-rays. The one that hides behind banal phrases, automatic smiles, and a desperate desire not to bother. And often, the person who suffers still feels guilty for feeling it, for reacting, for trying to escape. There is an emotional underbelly to these toxic relationships that rarely gets any space. The impact is not just psychological, it is physical, spiritual, profound. The victim loses sleep, lose your appetite, lose your sense of reality. You start to doubt everything. What you feel, what you remember, what you deserve. And the aggressor often sees himself as the victim. Misunderstood. Frustrated. The one who only wanted the best. The line between love and control, between care and imprisonment, between passion and possession, is thinner than we imagine. And when it is crossed, almost no one notices until it's too late. Now tell me, have you ever felt this way? As if it were being erased little by little, without anyone noticing. Write a word or a sentence here in the comments. Something that stayed in your mind. Something that still hurts. It could be just this: I understand, Aina. Or something you never had the courage to say. Because sometimes what needs to be said is kept for too long. She liked small plants, cacti, succulents, anything that fit in the palm of your hand. He said it was easy to care for, didn't require much, but still had life. This phrase has remained etched in the memories of those who knew her. It is easy to care for, but it has a life. Maybe she was talking about herself. Maybe it was just about the cactus. Before the collapse, Aina was low light, not the kind that blinds, but the kind that warms. You know, that person who pays attention even to what you didn't say. It was her, always listening more than she spoke, always noticing details that others ignored. I had a strange habit of photographing shadows. Not faces, not beautiful places, shadows on the walls, on the floor, on other people's faces. He said that shadows show what the light does not want to assume. And this was coming from a girl who, until she was 18, still slept with the door ajar because the absolute darkness made her restless. She was the middle child, with that typical silence of someone who always had to give up space, that her parents remembered her as the one who didn't give any trouble. And that shaped her. Being invisible became a survival instinct. He never complained. He never demanded, but he looked deep. Friends said she listened with her body, that just being close to her was enough to make him feel accepted, even without saying anything. Aina collected silences like others collect memories. The first relationship came early. Someone who said he loved her for being so calm. Someone who praised precisely what she built to avoid being rejected. The ability to endure everything in silence. And that's how it started to fade. As if, with each new compliment, a part of her was left behind to better fit into the image that the other person projected. She stopped using strong lipstick. He stopped painting his nails. He exchanged books for series he liked. He cut his hair short because he said it suited mature women better. He learned to speak more quietly, to not interrupt, saying it's okay, even when I felt the opposite. But no one saw this as a warning. The transformation was subtle. She kept smiling. She kept being there. But now, always one step behind. And this is not exclusive to Aina's story. How many times have you seen someone fall apart to fit into someone else's heart? How many times have you felt like you needed to dim your lights so as not to disturb those around you? Do you believe that a person can kill without laying a finger? No blood, no weapon, no trace. Just words. She threw herself. But it was I who pushed her with words. That's what he said. Eyes open, voice low, almost regretful. Almost. His breathing was the only sound in the room. The recorder was spinning. The red light was flashing. And there, in silence, he confessed to a murder that no one dared call a crime. Her name was Anna. She was 22 years old. She was not found with bruises or marks on her body, but inside, it was already destroyed, piece by piece. For every insult disguised as a joke, for every cold silence where she begged for a look and received contempt, for every message that didn't come, for every night that ended with no one will ever love you like I do. Have you ever experienced something like this? Someone who slowly erased you, convincing you that the problem was always you. What you will discover now may surprise you. Aina didn't scream. She smiled in the photos. I wrote everything is fine in the messages, but inside, it was just rubble, remains of self-esteem, identity, crumbs, everything that was left after him. He never touched her, never raised his hand, never broke a rib, never left a visible bruise, but it destroyed what no one sees, the soul. He said it was just jealousy. That was careful. Who cared? But it was all controlled. Sharp words, constant criticism, ironies that cut deep. He knew exactly where to press. And she stopped fighting, the cruelest. She started to believing that it was really a mistake, that if he died, it would be a relief for everyone. Until one day, it was. The body fell from the 8th floor. But death began long before the fall. It started on those nights when she cried herself to sleep. The morning he said, "You are a burden." The time she replied, "I love you," and he was silent. Nobody saw the crime, because there was no scene, there was no noise, just the final bang. And when they asked him, he just said this: "She threw herself. But I was the one who pushed her with words." The police filed it. Justice washed its hands, but the truth remained there, trapped between deleted audios and averted glances. And now, years later, he decided to speak out, not out of regret, but because the guilt weighs more when the whole world thinks you are innocent. Maybe you know someone like him, or someone like Anna. Maybe you've said something, but you never knew the damage it caused. Or maybe you're living it right now. What comes next is not easy to hear. Because sometimes what kills does not bleed. And the story only begins here. Sometimes what kills leaves no mark. And if this story is touching you in some way, if it reminded you of someone, or made you feel something you can't explain, then maybe you understand why it needs to be told. Here, on this channel, we give voice to everything that has been silenced. We talk about the pain that no one sees, of invisible wounds, from the muffled screams behind smiles. If you feel that these truths need to be exposed, that stories like Anna's cannot be swallowed up by oblivion. Sign up. In truth. Every new registration here is not just a number. It's like turning on a light in places where for a long time there was only darkness. This is what allows stories like this to continue to come to light. That's what keeps this chain alive. Made up of people who feel, who think, who don't close their eyes to what hurts. And I promise you, what comes after this will mess with you even more, because his confession doesn't end here. "I screamed," she cried, "and I liked it." That was the sentence that took the longest to digest. Not because it was absurd, but because it was honest, raw. Coming from the mouth of someone who knew exactly what he was doing, and did it anyway. He didn't tremble as he said it. He didn't apologize. I just stared at the wall in front of me, as if the memory was there, projected, alive, insistent. The recording took place 2 years after the fall, from the impact. From the wake with white flowers and people trying to understand what they can't see. How could someone who seemed fine decide to end it all? But he knew, and now, he said, she stopped reacting in the 3rd month. Before that, she would argue. She would confront me. After that, she would just listen. His eyes did not hold tears, but tiredness. Tired of supporting aversion. To pretend it was an emotional accident. It wasn't. It was a plan. Unconscious, perhaps, but a plan of slow demolition, of identity, of strength, of the will to continue. Needed to destroy her, because she reminded me of everything I wasn't. That sentence stuck. As if he had revealed the hidden truth behind many relationships, where love is just an excuse for control. He couldn't stand her glare, her affection. Her freedom. These revelations raise more questions than answers. Who suffered the most? Who else was slowly, invisibly destroyed? And most importantly, who will tell these stories before they become just another forgotten statistic? The journey of uncovering this pattern of horror is like walking through a maze, where each step reveals a secret more disturbing than the last. It takes courage to face what many prefer to ignore. Because the impact is not just in the past. It is in the way these cycles continue to feed open wounds in society. In the way in which silence and fear become accomplices in a violence that seems to have no end. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because understanding this pattern is not just an exercise in macabre curiosity. It is an opportunity for transformation, of breaking MELITIES. To question the decisions we allow to be repeated. To bring to light hidden truths that can help prevent future emotional disasters. It is an immersion behind the scenes of a phenomena that many try to hide. But that needs to be exposed out an investigation that challenges not only justice, but our own capacity for empathy and action. If this passage touched you, if it awakened an uncomfortable feeling or a need to understand more, write a word or phrase that represents this feeling in the comments. It could be the invisible pattern, or just who suffered the most. Each comment is a voice against the silence that tries to hide these stories. I never touched it, but I killed everything inside. This sentence carries a heavy truth, a confession that doesn't need physical evidence to be devastating, because what he destroyed was not just a body. It was her soul. It was what she believed she was, what she dreamed of being, the courage she once tried to find. How many invisible deaths hide behind smiles that seem normal? How many voices are trapped in silences that no one hears? It is a universe of hidden pain, where violence does not manifest itself in bruises, but in wounds that bleed from within, wounds that are often underestimated, ignored, even denied. Impact of this goes far beyond what justice can achieve. It goes all the way down to the decisions we make every day, the mindsets we perpetuate without realizing it, the hidden truths we prefer to avoid, because acknowledging this reality is uncomfortable. It's about looking in the mirror and seeing your own flaws in the system, in empathy, in the way we welcome the pain of others. This journey we are taking reveals the behind the scenes of a dark cycle, where the consequences are silent but profound. Where words become weapons and silence an invisible accomplice. And even when there is no tangible evidence, the damage is real. Irreversible. It is an invitation to question what we think about violence, guilt, and justice. To understand that the most cruel wounds do not always appear on the surface. And perhaps the biggest challenge is learning to listen to what is not said, to feel the pain that is not shown. Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject, because that I never touched her carries an unwritten sentence, a prison that cannot be seen, but that destroys. And this hidden truth can transform the way we see stories like this. It can awaken a more conscious, more empathetic, more willing to act mindset. Every detail of this narrative is a step towards a greater understanding of the real impact of words, attitudes, and omissions. It is a reflection on how a life's journey can be interrupted, not by a single act, but by a sequence of decisions and choices that, together, slowly kill. If this passage touched you, if it brought to the surface a pain that seemed forgotten, write a word or phrase that represents this feeling in the comments. It could be invisible death, or just silence that kills. Each comment is a light against the darkness that insists on remaining hidden. If you've made it this far, it's because this story has stirred something inside you, perhaps a mixture of anger, pain, and a silent desire to understand what lies behind these masks that many use to hide real monsters. The truth we share here is not just about him or her. It's about what we don't see, what the system insists on ignoring, the silence that covers many forgotten voices. Join me on this mission to look beyond the obvious, because every word you absorb here helps to build a network of awareness and justice that goes far beyond this video. If any part of this story spoke to you, write in the comments, "This message was for me." I want to know who is really together in this search for answers and justice, who does not accept that things remain in the dark. And if you feel that this content made sense, leave a like. It's a simple gesture, but it shows that we are connected in this search for a truth that many try to hide, a strength that grows when we unite against the shadows that insist on remaining. There's a video here that complements this subject. It's another piece of this puzzle that we're putting together, and it has everything to bring new revelations that can change your perception of these stories. Click and stay with me there, because what comes next may be even more disturbing. And you won't want to miss this journey.